Welcome back, guys. We've shot a video on mental health and mental afflictions that will be posted very soon. And just when we were discussing, Akash and I were discussing that video, we kind of felt like there is another taboo topic that is not as openly discussed. In fact, a lot of astrologers, even in personal consultation, do not bring that up for the discomfort or the awkwardness it can cause. But we
Mm.
felt like one that if we are dealing with mental health, then this is the second most important relatable topic to it. So we wanted to kind of cover it, and the topic is sexual disorders and sexual health. Now, there are two things. One, it is different from sexuality, which is your gender orientation and how you identify. We will cover that. Akash and I will cover that in probably another video. But this video focuses more on sexual health problems,
Yeah.
problems with organs, psychological issues that can lead to impotency or phobias. Okay. Akash, do you want to add anything before we go ahead and, kind of deep dive
Of
into
course.
it?
Uh, let's try to get into it. But yes, I will say one thing. So there are many factors that go into a sexual disorder. All right. Now, of course, yes, mental health is one. If someone is depressed or is, and not in a good condition mentally, of course, there is a very massive inability to perform sexually or to, in fact, sexualize in general. And then there is another thing that can cause trouble, that is perversion. Some people
Hmm.
are too sexual in their nature, and that can also lead to certain issues with sexuality or problems with that. That being said, there are other factors. There are certain placements, there are planets which will reflect, regardless of anything, that a person might have some sexual disability or debility. We will look into all of these things. Let's try.
And another thing I just want to add is the reason this topic is very important is because in the chart, you can see unmet desires or suppressed desires that
Mm.
either manifest into hypersexuality or no asexuality. Like, because if your desires go unmet time and again, you either learn to
Exactly.
say, okay, this is not working
This
out
is
for
all
me.
right, or those repressed desires come out as a very weird, perverted behavior. Well, that's
Correct. So I thought it was worth discussing. And one more thing is very recently I saw this study done in Stanford, which is a twin experiment where twins share a DNA. So they saw that how can food and exercise impact your sexual arousal, and it like even food, like something as minute as food habits that can be seen from the chart, do have an impact on sexual health. So that's why I thought it's a very holistic topic, but because of the taboo of the word, it is taken in a very narrow sense, and so it makes sense to kind of spend some time and discuss and get your thoughts on it.
yes.
Should we
Why not?
I can go we have few charts. I think it makes more sense that we discuss once the charts open. So should I just go ahead and share them?
Please go ahead. Yes.
Okay, so the topic is here on the screen. This is the first chart. Now this is a chart of a woman, and we are not taking like right now names for just hide like concealing their sexual or their identity part of it basically, but sexual history and identity part of it. But this is a chart of a woman, and she has phobia of sex because she feels something will really affect her body physiologically if she had sex. So this has affected her married life too.
Mm.
And just your thoughts on this, because I can clearly see the Saturn Ketu moon with like Rahu
Now
aspecting.
that's very, very dark on the mind, right? And
Yeah.
Saturn and Ketu, Saturn is the dark planet, Ketu is like the underworld, and then it's all on the moon. Now, number one thing you do need to be able to, to sexualize or to be involved sexually. Seventh house is very important. Look at the seventh house here. Seventh house is the sexual organ itself.
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
also your relations. So to be sexually indulged with someone, these houses come into consideration. And
Hmm.
then you do notice in the chart there is a Venus Rahu combination, which is known for being very, very sexual, which is known for being very flirtatious or being very, sexually indulgent. But there's a debilitated sun over there. Plus, this is Saturn Ketu moon. That Saturn is niche in debilitation, that house. That sort of creates the issue. Okay. The combination is tough on the mind, the Saturn Ketu moon. And it feels like this person has fear, dar.
Hmm.
And of course, it's in Aries, so it's a primal fear related to the flesh body. It's in the 1-7 axis, once again, affecting how a person builds their relations. Maybe phobia like this arising from certain events in relationships.
Hmm.
And it's possible that the person's mind is not inclined to being that sexual due to the Saturn Ketu impact on the moon. You can see the person's mind thinks in a very narrow, specific manner. So to be able to sexualize with a mind like that is very, very tough.
Hmm.
Though it does show certain level of attraction in the person because of Venus being in the ascendant. But when you see such tough combinations with the moon, like you said, if a person's mental health is not up to the mark, no way they'll be able to sexualize in life. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, but in this particular case, so there are two things, right? In when it comes to sexual health, one that is solvable with counseling or with treatments and stuff, and the second
Mhm.
because they're psychological or physiological, and second is unsolvable because by birth you've been given an enlarged organ or stuff. In this case, I feel it is solvable by counseling, and
Yes.
from what I understood when I was doing my research, she did go through a year or two of counseling, and after that, they now have children as well. So it is possible. But if you see it and you can identify that, then it becomes easier. This is where astrology comes to help, right? To know that it's not permanent, you can give it a shot.
Now, in this chart, there are indications. You're correct. So, look at the Lord of the seventh is exalted in Capricorn in the fourth house. So, the seventh house has significant energy to it. And then the saving grace, Jupiter, is in the
I
sixth
was going to
house.
say in
It's a
Pisces.
very big blessing. And more than Pisces, it's the sixth house it's sitting in. Jupiter in the sixth house is a blessing in disguise. Okay. It saves you from very, very tough issues in life. Some
I,
magical
I said
hack.
Pi. Sorry, go ahead.
Pisces also, yes, because bed pleasures are seen from that side, and how someone might sexualize is visible there. But all in
Also,
all,
Pisces is a fertile, like watery sign. It's fertile ground, right? Like that's what I meant when I had used the word Pisces. Because for women's health, yes,
hmm,
seventh house, but also sixth house, right? Because that's your
that
routine,
was
how
for
your
general
mind
health.
is.
General health, yes.
General health. Correct, correct.
And
So
अगर
I
आदमी
feel like,
generally ही ठीक नहीं है, then तो they cannot use anything they have. Correct.
mhm, correct,
Pisces
correct.
just sort of Jupiter being in Pisces sort of uplifts the person over here. They have some saving grace in their life. Sure.
And also Mars and Saturn have a Parivartan yoga, right?
There is a parivartan, and the debilitation of Shani will ultimately go away. That's true.
Exactly. So it was
And
just a
in
period of
that
two
way, you are
years.
right. This person's issue is solvable. Correct. Because
Yeah.
the implications they point towards that. Certain issues with confidence in this person, I would say, you know, but nothing wrong that way.
Hmm.
Maybe a phobia, maybe something temporary, but nothing to permanently damage this person.
Hmm. So when we go through the next few charts, also let's discuss like which ones are treatable or remedies.
Of course,
Well,
of
not remedies, but like which ones are like you have to accept versus you have to let go. Should any last thoughts on this, or should I move to the next chart?
we can move forward.
Okay. So this next chart is of a male, and when I was
Hmm.
doing my research, from what I understand, is the importance is due to psychological issues because he has suspicions on his wife cheating on someone.
Straight away, three things, right? Number one, look at the fourth house, comforts
Yeah.
or how you generally feel comfortable. This person's not comfortable. Then again, Shani, Ketu, and
Same that we saw in previous chart, but
same
the
thing,
house and lagna.
exactly. Sort of like the same issue, correct? And no saving grace over here, particularly, right? And then this Rahu is in the sign of Virgo. That's a very special placement to see issues like that. In general, Rahu in Virgo can give you some addiction or repetitive thought pattern.
I was
So
also going to say Venus in Scorpio debilitation in some way, but like also there is Mars sitting in
So Venus is
Scorpio.
not debilitated in Scorpio, but it is going to affect the person's sexuality to a lot of extent. Planets in Scorpio, unka bharosa nahi. You don't control them.
Oh
That
no, I
means
meant, hear me out. I meant some unfixable issue because it's Scorpio. 12th house
that's
is your
true. That's true.
bedroom.
And something odd with the sexuality, or very often when Venus is in Scorpio in the person's chart. Now Mars is with Venus is a sexually rough combination. Okay, you find this in the charts of people, and especially if men have this, they might be sexually rough with their partner, or their partner might be someone who's sexually indulgent or rough. So maybe this person's psychological issues stem from that.
I also feel this is a combination, if it's in this house, can show that the person has a tendency for sexual abuse.
Very well said. So Mars, Venus, like I said, rough sexual,
Hmm.
right? So there's some level of aggression in the sexual expression of the person.
Hmm.
But once again, this does become psychological. It's all about the psyche of the person. So it's not a bad combination for sexuality. Actually, it's hypersexual, Mars and Venus. But now you see Moon, Saturn, and Ketu once
Hmm.
again. How do you indulge yourself sexually? You first have to have it in your mind. It's not just something you get up and start doing, right? So once again, this person's mind really afflicted, and that might cause this person to not perform sexually.
Yeah, I would also say, because we discussed and it is a psychological issue, it's stemming from insecurity. Now, that also I'm saying again, when you see Venus, Mars in Scorpio and Rahu in Virgo, I I have not read this in a book, but what I'm interpreting is a insecurity of the mind that your wife, they don't feel secure that their wife will stay. Like they feel like
And this
they'll be
is
cheated
more
on.
personal in that sense, because look at the 410 axis. Okay, आपकी लाइफ में जो discomfort है, right? And how satisfied and, like you said, how secure you feel really depends on the fourth house too. And we can clearly see there are no planets opposite to Rahu Ketu, like a possible Kalsarp yoga also happen.
Even the previous chart has culture. See.
Exactly. Now, Kalsarp has to be analyzed very carefully in these cases. Sometimes their Kalsarp yoga will exist in the person's chart for a very different reason. There they ought to give service with their Kalsarp yoga, right? But most of the time, Kalsarp yoga does cause some level of psychological issues, right?
Hmm.
And where the person might have a very afflicted mind, they're always troubled. And I've very often seen that the person is, inclined towards being uncomfortable, or it's mostly very, very uncomfortable in these spaces. Okay.
Can I tell you one more thing? Whenever I've seen Saturn Rahu aspect each other, which is this case and the previous case, again I've seen sexual health issues, challenges,
Very much possible. Now you can understand that Rahu is a person's obsessions.
desire also, and
Exactly.
Saturn is restriction. So I said unmet desire.
There is desire, but I would not call that the sole reason. I believe यहाँ पर थोड़ा there is some cause.
In, but I'm still saying from psychological perspective, all impotency issues or phobia issues do arise from either two factors: one, unmet desire, or suppression of desire. And I'm saying that could be because Rahu stands for desire and Saturn stands for like holding back, withholding, slow, delay, all of those traditional aspects. It could be in that it projects in sexual health. It can be great for other things, but like I'm saying, when it comes to sexual health, all the charts I saw a repeated pattern, even those that don't have culture.
Mhm.
But I could be wrong. That's why I'm just like bringing that up, that it could be one of the, if you spot it, you should ask the native if they have some sexual health challenge.
It's something very bad in the life of the person happens. Almost always shows that there is some
Which
problem.
one? 410 or 17?
Ketu in the fourth, Rahu in the 10th. That's Ghatak.
Okay,
And fourth
got it.
house is your comfort, also deals with your psychology a lot.
Hmm.
All right, how a person's psyche is triggered. Now, people
Hmm.
who have these issues, they have a general problem in feeling happy. Now, you look at the fourth house, Shani is there, Ketu is there, Moon is supposed to
Moon.
make it good. But there you go, the psychological issue arises from these placements. And then Shani is in the Kalsarp axis. That's even worse for the person. Like you said, some degree of restriction in the life, and then the person is just unable to perform, not just sexually, but unable to be happy in general.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
now, sexuality, it's not something to sexualize. One needs to have a very sound, a very happy kind of mind, is what I believe.
Yeah. Or like just well, I'm not using the word pleasure seeking mind, but like should have interest in life, should be enjoying life for you to be able to
Which
actually
is
give
not
back.
very visible with combinations like these, right? The mind is really
Yeah.
very.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. Is there anything else you want to bring up here? there is one more just thing that 12th and 11th, which is Saturn and Jupiter again are in Parivartan Yoga here. Again, in this case, it was solvable. He suffered for a long time, but then he was able to get past it. After like some counseling, his wife also consoled him. He was able to.
It's more in the person's imagination, these issues.
Correct, 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 correct. Ketu and Saturn, I think we discussed that yesterday, or I saw it somewhere else, but I
This
can't
is a
recollect.
yoke where I have seen people have very, now how do I say this? I've seen people have very off or detached kind of energy. Very often, I've seen some relationship trouble at a very young age, and which leads to the person not being able to make a good connection later on. And in very
Yeah.
often in these cases, sexualizing is out of the picture.
Yeah, I was just completing my sentence. So I was saying that yesterday we discussed the video where Ketu Moon, we discussed that there is a tendency of depression, loneliness, and even Saturn and Moon, we discussed the melancholia part of it, the long lasting sadness. All of this also, I'm saying, has led to his sexual health issues. And the reason I bring this up is that I started the video by saying that mental health and sexual health are really connected. And I just wanted to point that out as a
Mhm.
case study from this chart.
It's very, very clearly visible here. Yes.
Hmm. Should we move to the next chart?
Yes, yes, please, please.
Okay, so this one is actually the male chart has importance issue, but due to natural circumstance, he has a enlarged organ that affects his sexual health.
All right. Okay, now two factors you can see straight away, the eighth and the seventh. Seventh is the physical organ itself, and yes, Rahu there can show an enlarged organ. Correct. And Sun's aspecting this Rahu, so you can even look at that. But then you see Saturn in Virgo, a sign known to show you your issues and diseases, and Saturn is the blockage, and it's in the eighth house. It's troubling the how do I say this? Person is not able to produce enough semen, or
Mm.
the sexual organ is not functioning properly. Okay,
Mm.
very very clearly visible. And another thing with Moon in the sixth house, very very moody people. Okay, health really related to mind. Their physical health suffers if their mind is in trouble, very clearly. And it's a very chanchal man. You see, Moon is in its own
Mm.
sign. So a lot
Mm.
of high low in this person's behavior that can show you a lot of confusion internally. Once again, you see Saturn is Rahu and Saturn are very close to the moon, right? Saturn is affecting the eighth house, which is responsible for the organs that actually aid a person in the process of childbirth, and you see
Mm.
some blockage over there. So we can say yes that this person has impotence related issues.
And from what I understand, even after multiple surgeries and all, it could not be recovered. And I feel the saving grace to this person, at least from my, it's just my view, is the spirituality part of it. So he has a Jupiter Ketu Sun in a trine.
Mm.
Maybe, he's able to find a saving grace in the fact that, he's more spiritual in nature. He doesn't see this as a roadblock. He's very detached from the sex being an important part of his life.
That's true, and Venus is also in the 12th, though it is in Capricorn, and Capricorn is not a very happy place for Venus, but Venus is in the house of bed pleasures, so that is not denied to this person, right? A person can be impotent, but can still have the pleasures of sexuality available to them. But impotence, if you say yes, we can clearly point out over here. But of course, there is a saving grace in these senses.
And in all of these cases, one point I completely missed out and I want to check is how do we know? Because impotence then leads to obviously no childbirth. And is there something to be seen in fifth house that shows that?
Yes, fifth house is going to show you if you actually have kids or not. Okay. Sometimes
But
people
what?
have everything perfect, they're medically fine. But अगर आपके पूर्व पुण्य ही नहीं है, आपने गलत काम करे हैं, you will not be blessed with a child. Okay. You need a very good Jupiter and you need a strong Venus to actually see if the person will be able to have kids physically. That is the thing.
But having kids is, I mean, it's not always. It depends on your perspective
Being
as
able
well.
to
But
bear a
ऐसा
child,
नहीं है कि just because you did bad karma, you won't have a child. Sometimes people don't
being
want to have
able
a
to
child.
bear a child, okay.
Hmm.
If one has to beget a child, the fifth house becomes very, very important. That's your first born, right?
Hmm.
And then the seventh becomes important. The eighth is also important in this sense. But
Yeah,
planets
I'm
like Jupiter and Venus are very, very necessary.
got it.
Now I have you have another chart, please. Please go ahead.
One last chart to go. This one is again enlarged sexual organ itself. So previous one was other organs impacting the sexual organ, and here the organ itself is enlarged, and it's pretty clear it has
Now,
Saturn.
straight off. I mean, I just saw this and then I just start feeling it. So there's Venus in Scorpio in the seventh, Saturn's right next to it. With Mercury, Saturn, Mercury is a combination known to give a little nervous trouble, and the person sometimes unable to perform sexually. And then you got Venus in Scorpio, pointing to a venereal or a sexual kind of disease.
Yeah, and Ketu in Virgo also, where children become a problem as well. So we just discussed childbirth, so I just brought this up as well.
Possible. And Ketu in Virgo, yes, could even mean a C-section at times, but that's more with
It's a
Rahu.
male chart. It's a male chart.
So in a male chart, this can mean, problems in having kids, in begetting a
Yeah.
child.
Which is clear,
And
right? He
some
cannot
degree of,
this.
like you said, Saturn is with Mercury and it's in the eighth house, really, really points to what kind of an issue the person could be going through. So some nervous disorder or some organ kind of disability happening in the eighth house right there.
Also, Mars, the position of Mars, while it is in third house, but it is in Cancer.
And it's in debilitation. Now, by Bhav, this Mars is very strong. All right. But the Mars is niche. Though it will not affect the childbirth situation much, but it is the Lord of the seventh, you see.
Mm.
And Ketu is the other Lord of the seventh if we look at the co-Lord concept. Ketu sits in the fifth, Mars is niche. You can say the seventh house is in a pretty damaged condition.
Mm.
And then you have Venus over there, does show to some degree something odd with the sexuality of the person. So there
Mm.
you go. Once again, like you've written, there's enlarged organs and that's become a problem. And that person
And it's
will
a
not,
non-solvable problem.
the non-solvable one. The person will not be able to beget a child.
Yeah, especially if Saturn is like in eighth house, I feel whatever is happening is a little long lasting. It does trouble you for a longer period of time,
Generally,
SNE, that
generally.
because the
So it
transit is
is,
also so slow.
it's a good thing with Saturn in the eighth. Sometimes it's a life extending position, right? It delays the decay or the death. But when it is in with planets like Mercury and then you have the other houses damaged, the same thing will result in a negative outcome somewhere. And like you said, it's
Got it.
manifesting physically in this person's case, and it's not
Hmm.
solvable.
Correct.
If this was a female's chart, and let's say we have Ketu here, sometimes that can show a problem with the fallopian tubes. So these kind of
Or,
issues are
or
often
I
seen.
was going to say, if it was, then maybe a surgery could have solved it also as a
Possibly,
possibility.
possibly. But
Escape to a
we've seen
surgery.
more C-sections or surgical treatments when Rahu goes to the fifth.
Okay,
Rahu
okay,
is
got
known to create that sort of scenarios, though Ketu does signify cutting. But when I've seen, most of the time I've seen Ketu in the fifth and it's giving trouble, it's with the fallopian tubes.
it. Understood. Okay, understood. Is there anything you want to bring up on the remedy part of it? For both
Now there are
solvable and
many.
unsolvable. Sorry,
Yes.
just thought I'll
Now
complete
let's
that.
say if the problem manifests physically. Now, and you see the person has, weak venous or semen, the tissue itself is weak. There are many Ayurvedic remedies. Person can even fix it with some exercise. They start to have an active lifestyle. But let's say the problem is permanent, then you need a doctor. Yeah, when it's a medical issue, you cannot stay all prayers and hope to get it fixed. You got to do something about it.
Hmm.
I've often seen that semen is one of the sapt dhatus, the body, and your sapt dhatus are replenished through certain Ayurvedic things. Aushadhiya. Like people have really propagated the wrong meaning of Shilajit. I would say that. And Shilajit is a substance that can replenish your dhatus very, very well. Particularly increase testosterone in the body for men and provide them, with that replenishment that can help them recover from these debilities. But this is in case of men. I'm a little unfamiliar and I'm still trying to study in case of females. But I have worked with a lot of men who have had these issues. There's a handful of yogasanas that increase, the drive in the body, the energy levels. And then things like Shilajit, they really, really help a person over here.
Hmm. Yeah, I hear you. From my end, I feel like I always said, one food plays a very, especially if it's a curable or a psychological part. food plays a very big role because Venus, your quality of your fluids or your
Exactly.
blood also is Mars. But what I'm trying to say is the food you eat gives the a lot of signification to the sexual arousal. Second is relaxation. I feel so many people, especially women, who've come and said that they don't have any drive, are just fatigued. And once you give them
Exactly.
sufficient relaxation, the drive comes back.
The drive comes
And
back.
so that's the second. Third, I feel is the therapy part, like behavioral therapy, certain behavioral traits that these guys have a mental block because of child abuse or some, especially for women, I'm saying,
Trauma.
because yeah, because we brought up that we brought up in India, there's always been a incidence of groping in public place or something that stays with us and that like puts us down when we want to really open up sexually. So that's the third part, which is going for a few sessions, unblocking your mind, giving it a fresh shot solves a problem in women's. I'm answering women's part because you already answered a lot from
No, no,
the
no, totally understandable. Right.
male part of it.
So
And
there are two sides to the story, right? It's never one. It's never through one. And I, like you said, there's one thing very peculiar. Mostly, it's people just stressed out.
yeah, yeah, of course.
Like
That's
with
why
a
I said
lot of females,
relaxation.
I feel that they're very, very stressed out and they're unable to indulge sexually the right way. They do not have a debility, but they've never been given a chance in life to calm down, take things slowly. And it's not that they don't have the drive, but they're super tired with what with these modern lifestyles that we are living. It does not leave out much energy in the person anyway. It drains you, right? And then we have these physical disorders manifesting by how, the lifestyle has become. People don't get enough exercise. They don't have enough, they don't have enough avenues to release their energies. And so, with the ideals changing, with the lifestyles changing, certain things happen to people, and this ability gets affected primarily.
Yeah, just I wanted to complete my point. I was just finishing the fourth point. I said three. The fourth point for women is how they look and feel, which is the obesity or the weight gain part of it. I feel like a significant of people, their husbands don't see them in a certain way or they don't feel confident, and that affects sexuality also. So like for the fourth one, I would say exercising, weight loss, or just feeling fitter will bring that drive back. So these are the four things when I was interacting with a lot of people, even when I was working at the health center. These were like the four things I could point out that look like not, well, they're not remedies, but they're solutions if you see something that's solvable but is psychological in their chart.
Very much possible. So it's mostly circumstances, is what I feel, right?
Hmm.
And then people can be cured. A lot of people, the charts we go through, they can be cured, but one has to be ready. One has to accept. Very often, I've seen the case where I have read people's charts that they might have certain issues like this, and it's a little bit of an embarrassment for them to accept.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
So very often people do not bring up these issues. Like you mentioned in the beginning, it's a taboo. So a lot of people then when they have these problems start to bring the issue out that, I've been suffering through this, I've been going through this. So if somehow people were given the avenue, maybe they would look for a cure earlier and they would seek redressal for it and actually get cured. So it's important that we bring things out like this way so that, people don't feel that this is something very uncommon or something they need to hide. This is something that they need to address, and it's an issue that really needs to be worked on. People also
Hmm.
need to learn how to control their thoughts and their ideologies in a way. And then the control over the lifestyle comes, and like you said, the energy returns to the person. And those debilitations or those debilities, they vanish. And you see a very good change in the person if when they're given a chance, actually, or when they address. So there are many remedies, there are many factors like we have pointed out, but the issue itself becomes a taboo. So I think it's a very good thing that we were able to discuss it today. Maybe someone who has these issues will come up to us or go somewhere else to seek redressal. I really hope.
Yeah, and like my aim with these videos and the time you also give your valuable time between all the studio and all is to bring awareness more than anything. Note, we will wind up. Thank you, Akash. I know today has been like a very chaotic day, but thank you for making time. I want to take these topics that bring awareness. Also, because we are young, like we should be openly discussing and not making these taboo as generationally that has been the case. So I'm glad we could pick this up, especially, from both angle, female and male. And so thank you for your time.